Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's the Daily Show, Monday through Friday. Be sure to subscribe right now. We've got a lot to get to this morning. I do want to address some of your comments. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, John. It is September 10th. Yes, tomorrow we will be doing a special show remembering, never forget, 9/11 and the tragedy that unfolded there. So we will be talking about 9/11 a little bit tomorrow. So you won't want to miss that show. Today, we have to talk about this Operation Pacific Viper, which is kind of a badass name if you ask me. But this is really fantastic. The Coast Guard, they completely vaporized this drug boat. Okay. So they seized all kinds of cocaine. They vaporized this drug boat. They apprehended drug cartel member. So we're going to be talking about Operation Pacific Viper. This is an initiative, a Trump administration initiative. So we're going to chat about it. We're also going to be chatting about SNAP. SNAP exposed. I've talked about this. Illinois has turned food stamps into a fraud factory. Okay. They might as well change the name from SNAP. It's not really a nutrition program. They should change it to like Pepsi, something Pepsi, snacks, Nutella, a bunch of junk food. It's junk food that's subsidized. That is what the SNAP program is really all about nowadays. But we're going to expose SNAP. Mary Miller, she was in a House hearing and she had made some comments about SNAP and how Illinois is some of the top in the nation, one of the top states in the nation to have a higher error rate, which means that they're awarding SNAP benefits to ineligible people. Like they're not eligible for SNAP, but yet they still slip through the cracks. And we have a pretty high error rate here in the state of Illinois. I'll be talking about it, but I also want to talk about this story. I saw the footage come out and it's truly gut-wrenching, and I'll play it here. I'm going to give you a warning. There was full footage, and I don't know how to feel about that. I really don't like watching somebody stabbed on the internet. And I'm sure that the victim's family, this is like they're going to have to relive it all over again or see this all unfold. But there's an important part of this that we can't forget, that hey, she didn't just die instantly, and seeing her get stabbed and not die instantly and the fear in her eyes, it really shows you how bad Democrat policies are and how we have to respond. And, I'm kind of indifferent. I kind of have mixed feelings, I guess, about the footage being out there available to everybody for everyone to see. I mean, this was on a public transit system. So there was all kinds of cameras, but there was an edited version that was released, and I shared that footage with you, I believe, on Monday. I'll share new footage with you. It's the full footage. I mean, you see her stabbed, you see the bloody knife, you see him walking past. And then on top of that, we also see the rest of the, and I hate to say this, Black community on that public transit system, the train. They didn't do anything to help her, and I think that this was racially motivated. I think that the people, the bystanders, they didn't care that a white girl had gotten stabbed in the neck. And I hate to say this, but that's what it looks like. It looks like these people, even the bystanders, didn't really care all that much because so what? A white girl died, on the train. They seemed unfazed by it, actually. I mean, it was pretty eerie to watch how all of the bystanders seemed pretty nonchalant about what was going on. I mean, in fact, one woman continued to look at her phone. She sees the blood drippings all over, and this girl's crying. I'm sure she made like an audible noise, and she just sat there. So I think that it's important that we look at this footage, we study it, especially considering that Pam Bondi has now announced federal charges against this guy, DeCarlos Brown Jr. Justice is coming, and this suspect is, of course, involved in that fatal stabbing in Charlotte. I'm surprised the Democrats haven't been screaming for knife control or, hey, we need to make sure that people don't have pocket knives available to them. I'm surprised that they haven't said that yet. But let's start with the Coast Guard and this operation, and then I promise we will get to the updates surrounding the federal charges and what Pam Bondi's doing against this suspect in the fatal Charlotte stabbing. Okay, so the Department of Homeland Security, they announced this week that the Coast Guard has made a drug boat go boom. And we're going to watch it right here. And they actually, on Tuesday, seized 13,000 pounds. Think about that, 13,000 pounds of illegal drugs. And then they apprehended 7 alleged smugglers. So let's take a look at the boat here. This is a drug smuggling boat, and it just got lit up on Tuesday. This is the boat where they seized 13,000. This was just in one day, 13,000 pounds. We're going to get to the seizures and the amounts of drugs that they've seized since launching Operation Pacific Viper, which is a Trump administration initiative. And I'll describe what it is exactly. But take a look at this. Here we go. Okay, completely vaporized. And I love this. I love the name of this initiative. It's Operation Pacific Viper. And this is where, and it's described on their website, the Coast Guard, and I pulled it this morning. Operation Pacific Viper is a historic partnership between the Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy, and they are really taking to the Eastern Pacific to cut off drugs in human smuggling before they ever reach the American shores. So that is where they're going. The forces are in the Eastern Pacific, and they are trying to shut it down before it comes to the American shore. So, as part of the operation, the Coast Guard conducted 19 um, interdictions in international waters. Okay, so they are interceding here and they are grabbing these drug cartel members, these human smugglers, and they are meeting them there in the Eastern Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. And they are defending the homeland with overwhelming force. Now, I don't know about you, but I saw the same clip. That is overwhelming force, and I'm all here for it. The Coast Guard has made numerous busts since the advent of the Viper. Since the advent of the operation, I want to take a look at this tweet here. This is from the U.S. Coast Guard. I'm going to share this with you. This is what they put out about the operation. They say, leading America's drug interdictions, owning the sea. Since launching Operation Pacific Viper, the United States Coast Guard has interdicted 40,000 pounds of cocaine. Okay, so, and then they apprehended 36 suspected smugglers. So just on Tuesday, they did 13,000 pounds. This is 14,000 or 40,000 pounds since launching the operation. Just on Tuesday, they did 13,000 pounds. And over the course of the operation, they've done 36 suspected smugglers. Alongside our partners and allies, our maritime fighting force is surging to the Eastern Pacific, disrupting cartels, keeping illicit drugs out of American communities. We are bringing every capability to bear to secure U.S. borders and maritime approaches. This is where the defense of America begins. Yes, where defense of America begins. This is awesome. So exciting. Now, one interesting thing about a DHS tweet that I'll tell you about. I won't pull it up, but this is what the tweet says. And I didn't quite get it at first, but they're trolling essentially. So they say, quote, ASMR, United States Coast Guard captures, burns, and sinks a drug boat. And then they attach another one of these boats getting vaporized. So ASMR, you guys know what that is. And I thought to myself, are they really actually saying that? Like ASMR? Like, so the gunshots and like the explosion, the vaporizing of this boat, it actually stands for, so ASMR, Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. So this is actually describing like a tingling or a static like or goosebumps that you get when you listen to noises, and it's is stimulating, and it usually comes from like audio. So specific audio and visual stimuli gives you like a sense of pleasure. So that's what ASMR is, if you didn't know. And I was like, wait, are they actually saying like this video is ASMR? And yeah, that's what they do. They actually were saying, they said that this is a, sensation. This is what ASMR is. It's like a pleasure sensation that, kind of spreads across your skull, down the back of your neck, and, gives you like little tinglies, goosebumps. So in other words, this is an epic troll by the DHS. So exciting. Boat violence, we got to ban boats now. Knife violence, we got to confiscate and ban knives. Yeah. So the libs, of course, they're going to see this and they're going to be like, human rights atrocities, yada, 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 for the drug cartel members. Gangs are a sense of community, and like they can't help that they're part of these gangs and that they're human smugglers, they were dealt a bad hand when they were growing up, something about the left. They always, say, oh, it's a human rights violation, right? And I'm sure that there's going to be a judge somewhere that shuts this down, an activist judge. Or they're going to attempt to shut it down. Frankly, I have no idea what the price of cocaine is, but I'd imagine it's going up. I'm going to take a wild guess that it's going way up. since this Operation Pacific Viper has been going on. And I'm going to imagine that the cartels have been taking at quite the hit. Okay, that this has taken a toll on the cartels, which is a good thing, because we've been talking about the war on drugs in this country for a long time. And now we actually have an administration who is backing that up with real firepower. Okay, this is an actual war on drugs. And we've had people in the presidency and in power who've talked about war on drugs, war on drugs, war on drugs, and they don't really do anything. This is an administration who's backing up that war with actual real firepower power and treating it like it is a war. So there's this judge out there, and like I said, I'd imagine that they're going to try to shut this down. They're going to say some sort of human rights atrocity, due process, or whatever the hell. They're like, oh, the human smugglers and the illegals who are trafficking the Mexican drug cartel members, are trafficking the drugs over to our American shores, they need due process. So I want to talk about James Boasberg. He's a judge. And likely right now, after seeing that video footage of the, this is the Department of Homeland Security, by the way, they tweeted this out. I think this is the one with the, yeah, that is. They said this is ASMR. I'm going to play it one more time just because it's so cool. They just completely vaporize his boat. So this judge, I'm sure he's out there ironing his robe, sharpening his pencils, and he's ready to jump on this. And he's going to say, oh, well, DHS, Coast Guard, Navy, you can't do this. And I'm going to jump in and write a couple of temporary restraining orders. And I want to talk about this guy because the Washington insiders and the left, they're all going to say that he's a moderate judge. And yeah, I'll say he's steady. He's steady in one thing: blocking common sense measures to keep this country safe. This judge, okay? So when this was recently, when the Trump administration tried to use the Aliens Enemy Act to deport Venezuelan nationals tied to crime and chaos, the judge swooped in with his black robe like he was some sort of superhero for open borders. And he didn't worry about, the safety of our communities, our safety. He didn't worry about the drugs pouring over our border. Oh no, his priority was to make sure that the suspected criminals got the right paperwork before they were put on the plane. Okay, and they were screaming due process for these Venezuelan nationals who have been tied to crime and chaos. Okay, and Trump was trying to use the Alien Enemies Act. And I don't know who better fits that definition than an alien enemy, other than a Venezuelan national who wants to smuggle drugs into this country. Okay, now don't misunderstand me, conservatives. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in due process for Americans, not for foreign enemies. Okay. But this judge, James Boasberg, he twists due process and he uses it as a political shield. Okay, much like these other activist judges who are probably going to go after Donald Trump for conducting Pacific Viper, or this Operation Pacific Viper. Okay, they're probably going to be like, oh, this is a human rights issue, and like there's no due process here. Yeah, there isn't due process because this is a full-blown war, and they're trafficking drugs into this country and killing Americans. That is an act of war in my eyes. So he certified a whole class of migrants. So activist judges could jam up the courts with lawsuits and delay deportations indefinitely. So what he's done is essentially say that illegal aliens have due process rights in this country, and that foreign enemies have due process rights in this country. So now what's going on is there is all kinds of lawsuits coming about, and they're delaying these deportations because they're saying, oh, these people deserve due process. Although that's never been a thing. We afford foreign enemies, invaders, due process. They're quite literally coming up on the American shores, smuggling human beings into humans, sex trafficking, and drug trafficking. But no, we got to stop them, and we got to say, oh, we got to give you due process. So this is a very He's certified a whole group of illegal enemies, alien invaders, as Americans, almost essentially, and it says that they should be afforded due process just like everybody else here in this country, citizens. Translation here: get the criminals to stay in America longer, and you, the families, are paying the price. Actually, because a lot of these illegal immigrants are afforded nonprofit lawyers with your tax dollars. Okay. So here's the kicker. This judge, this isn't the first time that he's done this. Okay. Boasberg, he has a track record of stepping in when the left's agenda is at stake. And, my verdict here, the conservative cat verdict, is that Judge James Boasberg is a part of the DC swamp, self-appointed priesthood, the unelected, unaccountable, and he's a part of that club. And he's more interested in handcuffing the president. And I will not be shocked if that activist judge or a different activist judge comes out and says that this is an act of war and he didn't go through Congress, or I could imagine what they come up with because they launched this operation. And he says, you need congressional approval before you go out and do these active wars. Or you need to afford the people on these boats due process. I'd imagine that's what's coming down the pipeline here. So he's more interested in handcuffing the president than he is handcuffing a gang member. Okay, that judge and other activist judges like him. So we need judges who defend America first and defend Americans first, because at the end of the day, Lady Justice isn't supposed to be wearing a Biden campaign button. Okay, she's supposed to wear a blindfold. Your robes are black; they're not blue. Okay, they're black. They're not red or blue. They're black, and you need to be impartial. And really, you need to serve America. So I've got to take a quick break, but we're going to be talking about this. Fraudsters, bureaucrats, yes, and even illegal aliens. We're talking about the SNAP program. Okay, so this is the Supplement Nutrition Assistance Program. This is a program designed to help struggling American families put nutritious food on the table. But it's really turned into a magnet for abuse and a drain on taxpayers. That is what Congresswoman Mary Miller said in a House hearing just yesterday. And we ought to rename this. We ought to rename SNAP. It's not the nutrition program. Really what this is, it's, Pepsi, nachos, serving nachos and Pepsi. That is what we should rename SNAP to. That is the new SNAP slogan, because that's really what SNAP has turned into. And we're serving up nachos and Pepsis to illegal immigrants on top of that. So we're going to be right back. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Here's a comment. Always send your comments. Operation Pacific Viper appears to signal an escalation in the U.S. counter-narcotics efforts with a stated focus on dismantling transnational and criminal organizations. Yes. Yeah, and I would imagine what a judge is going to say. This is my prediction. They haven't quite shut this down yet, this operation. But I imagine a judge is going to say that you needed congressional approval for this because this is an act of war. Or they'll go further and say that the people on the boats need due process. That's what I'm assuming is going to wind up happening here in just a couple of days. But, the president, what he's doing is acting in the best interest of America. And this isn't, he's treating it like it's a war because it is the war on drugs. But he doesn't need congressional approval for it because, they're quite literally on our shores and they're trafficking drugs here. And he's just vaporizing these boats, trying to seize as much of the drugs pouring in as possible. 40,000 pounds since this operation has launched, and it hasn't even been around all that long. Just on this past Tuesday, they collected 13,000 pounds of illicit drugs, or cocaine specifically. All right, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe. I'll be right back. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth lands hard. I'm your host, Cat. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that ought to make every Illinois taxpayer's blood boil. You're funding the abortion industry, and the abortion industry is very, very funded by the state of Illinois. So we're going to be zooming in on Illinois. What used to be the land of Lincoln is now the Midwest's abortion sanctuary. Under Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois has gone full throttle into becoming what he proudly calls the beacon for reproductive rights. Translation, come one, come all. Have your abortions here, and the taxpayers are going to pick up the tab. In 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the so-called Reproductive Health Act, making abortion, quote, a fundamental right in Illinois. But that wasn't all. He also repealed the Parental Notification Act for minors getting abortions. So that means little Susie, if she's 12 years old, she doesn't need her parents' permission to go get an abortion. Your 13-year-old daughter can get an abortion in Illinois, even without you knowing. And while Illinois families are struggling with inflation, property taxes, and rising crime, guess where your tax dollars are going? The last few years, just tens of millions of dollars of Illinois taxpayer dollars have gone to Planned Parenthood in just a few years, tens of millions of dollars. And they're not going to just fund the procedure itself. They're paying for out-of-state women to come here and abort their babies. It includes transportation, lodging costs, and logistical support, whatever the hell that means. I'm probably paying for some woman to get a McDonald's sandwich while she's here in the state. And literally, we're running a state-sponsored abortion tourism business. That's what we're doing here in the state. And let's not forget Planned Parenthood CEO salaries. Over $670,000 for Alexis McGill Johnson. Regional directors, they make about like six figures too. So your paycheck is shrinking, their paycheck is growing, and your roads have potholes, but Planned Parenthood thriving. Pritzker loves to pose as a champion for women, but let's be honest, this isn't even about ideology. It's about power and money. He's not protecting women. He's protecting Planned Parenthood's bottom line and all of these people raking in that CEO cash. And Illinois is now the abortion capital of the Midwest because he made it that way. Governor J.B. Pritzker. Illinois used to be about opportunity and family values. Now it's the go-to state for late-term abortion. Over 46,000 abortions in Illinois were done in 2022 or 2023 alone. 46,000 in Illinois alone, and many of you paid for that. And under Governor J.B. Pritzker, that number is just going to keep going up and up and up every single year. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Cat, reminding you that taxpayer-funded abortion is not compassionate. It's corruption. And all of these people are making tons of money. And it's time we demand real leadership. It's time we step up and demand that they stop funding this madness. It's time we stand for life here in the state of Illinois. What do you think? Hey, go ahead and smash that like button and share this out with your friends. Today on the Conservative Cat Show, this is a place where, of course, liberty has claws and the truth has teeth. I'm your host, Conservative Cat. Hit the subscribe button, share this out with your friends. Today we are talking about a program that was supposed to put food on the table, but rather it's become a banquet for fraudsters, bureaucrats, and yes, even illegal immigrants. That's right, we're diving into the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. So this was a program originally designed to help struggling Americans put nutritious food on the table, but it's turned into what Congresswoman Mary Miller has said, a magnet for abuse and a drain on taxpayers. So think about that. Hardworking Americans, they're tightening their belts while politicians let illegal aliens, scammers, and junk food companies feast at your expense. Okay, so think about all the EBT transactions that happen at Walmart, by the way. Okay, think about all the junk food that's purchased at Walmart using EBT. Of course, the big corporations are going to be big mad when the federal government says, oh, no, we're going to tighten this up. We're going to make sure that SNAP benefits are awarded to eligible applicants only. So Walmart's not going to like that. They want as many people in SNAP as possible because they get all kinds of money from it. It's a government subsidy, okay? It's a junk food subsidy. So you're tightening your belt, you're making decisions, and they're taking money from you. And the politicians are letting these illegal immigrants, these scammers, these ineligible applicants exploit you, the taxpayer, and the junk food companies, like Walmart, is getting rich at your expense. Okay. And I'm sure that is just clawing at your sense of justice. And um, we're gonna talk about it. So Congresswoman Mary Miller, she didn't mince words. She put it plainly in a House hearing. In this House hearing, from what I understand, the goal here was to debate if there should be some federal parameters here, some federal guidelines uh, as to how states should regulate SNAP. Okay, because you have states like Illinois, whose error rate, where we're awarding applicants SNAP like candy, okay, giving it out like candy. And then you compare that to Wyoming, who is feeling the pinch, from the federal government cutting back on what they contribute to SNAP, because that's just what happened. Donald Trump, cut some SNAP because he said, look, states are going to have to start tightening their belts. They're going to have to start cleaning up their error rates and really focus on giving SNAP to eligible applicants. So Congresswoman Mary Miller, she didn't mince words. She said it plainly. When states allow illegal immigrants to join SNAP, they are essentially stealing money from American people. That is a major abuse of the program. Let's take a listen to this clip. Here we go. Smash that like button.
Ma and farmer, I know how important food security is to all hardworking families. But I'm concerned about how liberal policies have damaged SNAP, all at the expense of the honest Americans and all at the expense of my constituents in Illinois. For example, when states allow illegal aliens to join SNAP to essentially steal money from the American people, that is a major abuse of the program, and one, thankfully, that will soon end. I worked with this committee to make sure that language was included in reconciliation that would remove unlawful illegal aliens from SNAP. But this is only one small step in the right direction. Overall, the abuse is staggering. Since 2022, more than $21 million in benefits have been stolen from Illinois families. Illinois has one of the highest error rates in the country. This is a failure due to poor state management. SNAP was also designed to be a nutrition program, not a junk food subsidy. That means Congress must ask, how do we ensure SNAP dollars are safeguarded for American families, not stolen and abused by radical state governors or spent on junk food? Ms. Schmidt, Wyoming has a reputation for tight accountability in the SNAP program. From your experience running a state agency, what role should Congress play in ensuring that states are held accountable so families don't pay the price for mismanagement?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, thank you for the question. The eligibility, as you mentioned, is established by the feds in the federal government, and then the states then enforce those. The method that we've chosen to enforce it is to ask for verification proof, a birth certificate, for example, and then we verify that through the Department of Homeland Security's SAVE system. So we have both electronic ways of verification and then physical ways of verification.
That's fantastic. Also, Ms. Schmidt, as someone who has had to manage eligibility determinations at the state level, what steps should Congress make to make sure SNAP benefits go to American families first and that states cannot use loopholes like Illinois is using? They don't require the driver's license or a birth certificate to extend benefits to those who should not qualify.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, in part of my written testimony, I made a comment about how every state has to make the decisions based on its constituency. And Wyoming makes a lot of our decisions based on what it is that will be supported both through our public and through our leadership. And so as we think about what it is that we would need then in order to make sure that we are performing the best, One of the big requests would be is consistent information coming from our partners at FNS and the USDA. And I think that.
Okay. So I wanted to share a little bit of that with you. She didn't mince words. She said, when you allow illegal immigrants to join SNAP, you're essentially stealing money from Americans. She's absolutely right. Let's call it what it is, theft. If you or I swipe money that doesn't belong to us, we go to jail. If we take money, from somebody, if we take a grandma's little purse, right, you and I would go to jail. But the state of Illinois lets ineligible applicants without IDs, without birth certificates. You heard Wyoming there, a representative from Wyoming, their Department of Family Services. You heard her. They check IDs. They check birth certificates. Illinois doesn't do that. We let ineligible applicants waltz into the welfare office and claim taxpayer-funded benefits, and suddenly we call that compassion. If you or I were to swipe money from people, we would go to jail. This is criminal what the state of Illinois is doing. They're swiping money from you and they're giving it to ineligible applicants, and that is theft. So this is not compassion, it's corruption, dressed up in a virtue costume. And I like this comment here. Governor Webb said it the best. SNAP provides food benefits for low-income families to supplement their grocery budget, not replace it, by the way. So some people get like thousands upon thousands of dollars in SNAP every month. And that's ridiculous. It should be a supplement program. So it should supplement your grocery budget so they can afford nutritious food essential to health and well-being. Yes. So Illinois has the worst SNAP error rate. So what does that mean? It means that they are awarding SNAP benefits to ineligible applicants, and we have an error rate that's calculated. And we have some of the worst error rates in the nation. Since 2022, more than $21 million in benefits were stolen. So 21 million. That's not an accident, folks. That is systemic failure, and it is poor state management at its worst. Okay. So while families in rural America are deciding whether to pay their electric bill or buy groceries, Springfield bureaucrats are making it easier for fraud to flourish by not making some sort of eligibility requirement or enforcing eligibility requirements or requiring ID or birth certificates to prove who you are in order to receive that SNAP. Okay, and let's not forget SNAP isn't about feeding families. It's about nutrition. Okay, Congressman Mary Miller, she talked about it. She said how this was not supposed to be a junk food subsidy, and that's what it's kind of turned into, where Walmart is being subsidized through the SNAP program, and a bunch of people are getting SNAP and buying the junk food at Walmart, and these junk food companies love it. Walmart loves it. And really what this has become is a corporate handout, SNAP, okay? And it's government-sponsored partnership with Big Soda, Big Snack, and you walk into a gas station in Illinois, you swipe that SNAP card, and you walk out with Mountain Dew, Cheetos, and candy bars, all courtesy of Uncle Sam. Meanwhile, you've got diabetes, obesity, heart disease skyrocketing. Instead of promoting help, we're subsidizing sickness. And you better believe Big Pharma and Big Food are laughing all the way to the bank. This is a vicious cycle. Taxpayers pay for junk food. Okay. Taxpayers pay for the health crisis caused by the junk food. And then, so we have to pay for the Medicare and Medicaid that people are using because they have to go to the doctor. And then the bureaucrats pat themselves on the back and they say, oh, we're helping families. This is not a safety net. This is a spider web. So let's look at Wyoming. And this is the difference that Congresswoman Mary Miller pointed out. Wyoming system, she pointed to it almost as a model, and for good reason. Corin Schmidt, who you heard there with the Director of Family Services, she explained the process. You know, they require actual documentation, something Illinois doesn't do. A birth certificate, ID verification. They actually cross-reference you with the Homeland Security SAVE system. Imagine that. They're making sure the benefits are actually going to citizens who qualify. What a radical idea that is. Okay, making sure that eligible citizens are getting the SNAP benefits. So Schmidt said consistency in terms of conversations across the state states helps anyone applying for SNAP to know what's expected of them and what they need to verify. So what she's really calling there for, or what she's calling for, is a federal guideline. Okay. And that's what I think we're kind of missing here. We've allowed the states, and I know this is going to sound sort of authoritarian federalist, but I don't really give a damn, because Illinois is run amok and we need checks and balances. So what we need is a federal guideline that says, hey, you have to at least require a birth certificate be presented, and you have to at least cross-reference that information with the Department of Homeland Security's SAVE system to verify that individual is a citizen and eligible for SNAP. Okay, so I just think that there needs to be a federal guideline, because you have states who are abusing, like Illinois, the leeway here, and we shouldn't give them much leeway in this, because the taxpayers are hurting. You have to have standards, okay? You have to protect the taxpayers. You have to protect the integrity of the program, and you have to protect families. And I know I'm all for states' rights. I understand, but there has to be some sort of federal guidelines, and that's what this hearing was kind of all about. Wyoming didn't reinvent the wheel. They just applied common sense, okay? This is just common sense steps. And Illinois could learn something from Wyoming. Honestly, the federal government needs to step in and demand Illinois act like Wyoming. And to be honest, it would be easier on everyone, because if you go and apply for SNAPs, say you move states, it's the same across the board. You need your birth certificate, you need a driver's license, right? If we make it the same across the board, that consistency is going to make government more efficient. It's going to streamline the process. And here's the problem. Illinois doesn't want to learn. Okay. They don't want to do it themselves. They want to be a thorn in the taxpayer side. They want to be that troubled child. Okay. And the machine in Springfield is thriving on dependency, by the way. They want people dependent on SNAP. The more people hooked on this system legally and illegally, the more power that the Democrat Party has over you. Okay, dependency is the currency of progressivism. Okay, so they want you in this modern form of slavery, which is government welfare. They want you dependent on them, because every election year they can use this against you and say, hey, the evil Republicans are going to be taking away your SNAP benefits. Don't you need that? They want you dependent on them as much as possible. So this debate also raises bigger questions. Should states set their own SNAP rules, or should the federal government step in with uniform standards? Throw it in the comment section. Some of you might disagree with me, but I think that we need uniform federal standards there. I said it. Because this has just gotten out of hand, where Illinois has turned SNAP into a free-for-all, and it's dragging the rest of the country down. Okay. And normally I would say keep Washington out of it, but there's fraud in Illinois. And the fraud doesn't just hurt Illinois taxpayers, it hurts all Americans. It hurts federal taxpayers, because guess what? And it hurts people in Wyoming, because guess what the federal government just did? The Trump administration, they cut SNAP knowing that there's so much fraud and abuse. And now Wyoming is having to kind of figure out how much they have to cover the state, being that the federal government is not chipping in as much as they used to. Okay, so it used to be like 50-50. Now the state of Wyoming is having to pay like 75, and the federal government's paying 25, because the federal government said, well, if there's a ton of fraud and abuse in the system, we're going to cut it. And you guys, we're trying to force, that's what the Trump administration is trying to do. They're trying to force states into reevaluating their SNAP programs, and only awarding it to eligible individuals. Okay, if you're wasting $21 million since 2022, Illinois, we're going to cut SNAP. Really, it's kind of like the federal government is punishing everyone for the sins of the few, which you can argue isn't fair. But like, at the end of the day, what the federal government is trying to do is they're trying to advocate for the taxpayer and be an advocate of the taxpayer with cutting SNAP. So this is where federalism meets reality. States should have flexibility, yes, but not at the cost of national integrity. Okay, Wyoming proves that they can run SNAP with integrity. Illinois proves that they can run SNAP into the ground. Okay. They can run it into the ground, and the federal government should step in and they should prevent systemic abuse with establishing federal guidelines and forcing Illinois to require things like birth certificates, require things like IDs when there's applicants applying for SNAP. They should prevent systemic abuse, the federal government. They should not allow Illinois to expand the abuse. And let's talk about this from a Christian worldview, because I think a lot of Christians struggle with this. Because, you're supposed to be there for the needy. You're supposed to be there for the poor. Let me break this down for you, because the Bible has a lot to say about work, provision, and caring for the poor. The scripture calls us to care for widows and orphans, the truly needy. But it also says, quote, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10, if a man will not work, neither shall he eat. Okay. And the cuts to SNAP, really what they were was, hey, if you are a or if you are a young individual without any dependents, okay, and you are working, you got to at least work part-time in order to receive this this SNAP benefit. Okay, that is directly aligned with 2 Thessalonians here. God designed work as a blessing, not a curse. Dependency on the government handouts is not compassion, it's bondage, and it's a new form of slavery. Christians are called to charity, but charity must be rooted in truth, and it can't be forced either. Okay, it should uplift people, not enable sin or laziness. SNAP, in its corrupted form, doesn't reflect biblical charity. It reflects political manipulation. Feeding the hungry is good. Enabling fraud, obesity, and lawlessness is evil. And we as Christians should have the courage to call that out and not be afraid to call that out. Okay, so like I said, we need to rename the SNAP program. If we're not going to get it under control, we should be calling it Serving Nachos and Pepsi. That's the new slogan. Or how about SNAP, now accepting everyone, no proof required. That's the way the state of Illinois runs it. We serve nachos and Pepsi, and we're not requiring any kind of proof of identification. Meanwhile, bureaucrats in Springfield hold press conferences, and they say, we're proud to announce that SNAP benefits will now cover net subscriptions. I'd imagine that Netflix subscriptions, I'm sure that there's going to be a press conference like this at some point. I'd imagine the bureaucrats would say, oh, well, SNAP is going to cover Netflix subscriptions, iPhones, and even Cubs tickets, because why not? That's the direction we're headed here, folks. I'd imagine we'd see a press conference where they're talking about expanding SNAP to cover, necessities, or Netflix is a human right. iPhones are a human right. Cubs tickets are a human right. Baseball tickets are a human right. I know that might sound like a joke, but when you have programs without any guardrails, remember, you don't have any identification. You don't have to prove who you are to receive the benefit. This absurdity will soon become a reality. And the biggest joke of all, taxpayers are the punchline. So where do we go from here? First, we have to tighten eligibility, require documentation, birth certificates. At a federal level, there should be a federal guideline. I mean, I think that it's just gotten to this point. It would be nice if states just, did the right thing, but they don't. There should be verification through the Department of Homeland Security, like Wyoming does, to ensure that not only these people are who they say they are, but they are in fact citizens. Second, we need to restore nutrition to the center of SNAP. If it doesn't build your health, it doesn't belong in the program, period. Lay's potato chips, Mountain Dew, you shouldn't be able to purchase those with a SNAP card. Third, we need to enforce accountability in states like Illinois. If Springfield wants to play fast and loose with the taxpayer dollars, you need to cut the federal funding until they clean up their act. And that is exactly what the Trump administration has done. Unfortunately, you have states like Wyoming who have kind of been playing by the rules and doing their job. And now they're also going to have to deal with the cuts to SNAP. And they're going to have to pick it up at the state legislature. I'm sure that they're not going to have a problem doing that, because guess what? Wyoming runs their state to where they're not dealing with budget deficits all the time and ballooned budgets. So I think that they're going to be just fine picking up the tab a little bit. But it's kind of like Illinois is kind of like that kid, your trouble child in the nation. And because Illinois acted out, Wyoming also has to pay a price, and they have to deal with the cuts just like everybody else. Although that they haven't been abusing the program. I would have liked to see maybe the Trump administration cut SNAP benefits for specific states and choke them out. Congresswoman Mary Miller said it best. She said, "It's a new day here, and the American taxpayer benefits are going to be going to Americans." Amen to that. Friends, we need the SNAP program, a SNAP program that honors work, feeds families, promotes health, and protects the taxpayers. Right now, we have a government-run racket that enriches the wrong people. So at the end of the day, SNAP shouldn't be about politics. It should be about shouldn't be about padding the Democrat voter rolls, because really that's what this is truly about, and why there's so much abuse here in the state of Illinois, because they want you dependent so they can pull it out every election, re-election campaigns, and say, "Oh, I'm going to protect your SNAP." We should not be subsidizing soda companies and coddling these fraudsters. It should be about putting healthy food on tables of hardworking Americans who are just struggling a little bit. They need to supplement their grocery bill with SNAP. That's the vision, that's the goal, and that's what people like Mary Miller are fighting for in Washington. And make no mistake, the swamp is going to resist. They're going to fight. You're going to get your Eric Swansons out there who say, "Those evil Republicans, they hate you," because dependency is power, and power is their real meal ticket. And that is why they want you dependent on this program. They want you fat and happy, right? And this is why we fight here at Conservative Cat. We fight for truth, we fight for liberty, we fight for families, and yes, for a government that serves Americans, not illegal aliens, not fraudsters or corrupt politicians. All right, I got to take a quick break, but I do want to get to Irina Zarutska. This is a tragic story. I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm going to play the full video for you because I actually watched it. I haven't watched anything like this on the internet in quite some time. A lot of this stuff kind of gets censored. Now, there was an edited version that came out on Monday. I shared that with you, but there is an unedited version out there where you actually see her getting stabbed and her bleeding out very, very slowly. I couldn't imagine being murdered in this way. She had to have been terrified. She probably knew in the back of her head that she was going to die. But at first, she probably didn't even realize she was stabbed. It looks like she was really caught off guard. And her only mistake was sitting next to this guy and sitting on a train full of members of the Black community. That's her only mistake. And I know that this is going to be very controversial, but those members of the Black community, everybody on that train was Black except Irina, and nobody lifted a finger to help this girl. And I hate to say it, but I think that this was a hate crime. I think that those people on the train should be charged as accomplices or should be charged with aiding, really. They didn't stop him. They didn't do anything to take the knife out of his hand. And maybe it's because of Daniel Penny, the case there. People are afraid to stop the bad guy and subdue the bad guy because of what they did to Daniel Penny for doing just that. I don't know. Really, the way I look at it, I think that it was racially motivated. She was a white girl, and they were all Black on the train, and they didn't care about her because she was white. And, that's just the way I see it when I watch this. There was no other. And then the guy, of course, this was racially motivated. He is caught on the microphones of the cameras saying, "I got that white girl. I got that white girl." So this happened in North Carolina, and the Trump administration has kind of been dropping the hammer on Charlotte, North Carolina in the aftermath of this brutal murder of the 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee. Her name was Irina Zarutska. And he's been dropping the hammer on this Democrat-run city and Democrat-run cities across the nation since the video footage has come to light. This happened on the rail system in Charlotte in August, later August 20th, 22nd. And now the video has just come to light, which is why it's become so huge. Donald Trump actually addressed the nation, showing pictures of the incident, showing the mugshot of the guy. This is huge news. And it's getting bigger because you've got Pam Bondi now joining in with the FBI, the Department of Transportation. Everybody wants justice, and they're charging him. I mean, he's going to get the book thrown at him, rightfully so. He's a repeat offender. He's 34 years old. His name is DeCarlos Brown Jr. We're going to take a quick break. I'll share with you the video. So warning, warning, warning. This is a graphic video. So when we come back after the break, I'll be sharing that graphic video with you. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends, and hit that like button right now. I see you watching. Hit it and share it out and subscribe. Subscribing is the best way you can help me out. Now I want to get to this comment. There's a couple of like odd things with the video, and I totally agree with you, commenter. I've been watching it over and over. I don't see any blood on her neck, and there's a couple of things that are strange with the video if you watch it. Yes, maybe like, okay, let's just watch it and we'll break it down. Let's take a look. Okay. I'm going to rewind it a little bit. Let's go up. And he wraps his arm around her. I know this is kind of hard to see, but I want to address how there's some odd things about the video, okay? I think there's a reason why you can't see the blood on her neck. It's because he wraps his arm around her here and goes towards the other side. Everybody is looking for the side that he was on, but I think that he wrapped his arm around her neck and stabbed her on the other side, so that would be her left side. Okay, now can't see because maybe it's in the back. See, I don't know. She turns here. But I mean, clearly there's blood, right? I mean, there's blood on her pants. There's blood all over. Okay, and then there's blood pooled up right here. So that gives me the indication that it was on the other side. Otherwise, the blood would probably be pooled up more so towards the right side of the seat. It's pooled up really towards the left side of the seat, which suggests to me the left side of her neck was stabbed. That's just my take on it. But you're right. I mean, you really can't see where the wound is actually at. She turns her head a couple of times and you can't really see it. He might have like stabbed her like on the right side, maybe more towards the shoulder. But she bled out. And I mean, you'll even see, I don't think you get to see it so much here in this video, but there's been angles where people on the train, specifically this black woman, it was all black people sitting with this woman, like watching this all unfold. And there was this woman who kept looking at her phone. and like didn't even like flinch. Okay. Now, if I'm seeing blood on the floor, maybe people didn't realize that this was happening, but she's crying. I'd imagine it was pretty audible. Okay. To me, it just looks like racism all the way around. She was a white woman on the train. She's obviously struggling. And if I saw somebody crying, and this woman was, I mean, she was darting her eyes back and forth, and she was in fear, and she looked at specifically the black woman next to her. If you saw a woman crying on the train, just in general, I would go over to see. And then you don't see the blood. Blood has a very specific smell to it too, and that much of it, the way I'm looking at this, there's no way that those people didn't realize she was stabbed. Okay, the passengers, the bystanders. There's just absolutely no way. So the Trump administration has been hammering down on not only North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, but other Democrat-run cities in light of the brutal murder. Among the announcements of the investigations that are being done by the FBI, the Department of Transportation, we've now learned that the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina, Russ Ferguson, he is now hinting at possible federal charges against the suspect. Everybody now wants everybody wants this guy's head. Okay, 34-year-old, good. And that's another thing is on this train, on this rail, I don't understand. Like, it was nobody carrying. Like, I would have just whipped out my gun and blown that guy away. That's what I would have done. I guess nobody carries on the train anymore. Nobody was carrying. This is why I always say carry a gun always. The stabbing on the Charlotte Light train was a tragedy. And we are looking at every way the federal government can bring justice to Irina Zarutska and her loved ones, Ferguson noted in a statement while vowing to help restore confidence in the public transit system. So you got the FBI, the Department of Department of Transportation. Then you've got this U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina. Now you've got the DOJ. Attorney General Pam Bondi, that is the update in this story. She has announced that her department is going to be moving forward with federal charges against Brown. Let me share with you the tweet that the DOJ had put out there. She goes, quote, "I have directed my attorneys to federally prosecute DeCarlos Brown Jr., a repeat offender, with a history of violent crime for murder." Okay, so he's out and about, and he's has a history with murder. And of course, he murdered somebody else because that's what people with a history of murder do. We will seek the maximum penalty for this unforgivable crime. He will never see the light of day as a free man. That is what Pam Bondi said. Good. According to the DOJ press release, Brown has been charged with one count of committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. Okay. So I want to share this tweet with you. Hang on, let me get to it. Oh boy. Because there's so many things about this. Like the Department of Transportation, everybody wants a piece of pie of this because now you have caused a distrust in the public transit system. Okay. There's a distrust there now, and now people don't feel safe to ride the public transit system anymore. So this is what Attorney General Pam Bondi said. Irina Zarutska was a young woman living the American dream. Her horrific murder is a direct result of failed soft on crime policies that put criminals before innocent people. So that's a tweet. And the brutal attack of this innocent woman, she was just simply trying to get to a destination. She had her pizzeria clothes on. She was working. This is an attack on the American way of life. Okay, that's why so many people want this guy's head. The U.S. Attorney Russ Ferguson out of North Carolina said, "Of course, crimes like this affect the victim the most. Irina deserves justice, and we will bring justice to her and her family. But crimes like this also affect everyone who relies on mass transportation to get to and from work and to go about their daily lives. The federal charges are necessary to protect the public and to ensure confidence in our transportation system. If convicted, Brown faces the maximum statutory sentence of life in prison or death. So could possibly face a death penalty. Good. Ultimately, the sentence will be determined by the court based on the advisory sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. So the FBI is investigating this with the assistance of the Charlotte police there. The assistant U.S. attorney, Mark Odulio, he is of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Charlotte, is prosecuting the case. Okay, so Mark Odulio is prosecuting the case. FBI Director Kash Patel, everybody wants this guy's head. He was quoted in the DOJ press release saying, "I want to thank Attorney General Pam Bondi for her pursuit of today's federal charges, which are the first step towards delivering justice for Irina and her family," which is a clue that more accountability will likely be coming in the coming weeks. I mean, this guy is going to be charged. Good. Stay tuned for that. Really tragic stuff. Let me see if I can find. I want to find a clip where you can see the bystanders. Okay. I got to try to find it, but okay, here we go. This is a picture that I want to share with you of all the bystanders there. Okay, so you kind of get a whole view of the cart here. And I think that every single one of these people are racists. And the reason why they didn't come to her aid is because she was the only white girl and they don't care about white people. I think that would be the only reason why. That's the way it looks. Okay. So this is a nice little graphic because it points to all these people and what they did when she was stabbed. Okay, so she's dying here. She was stabbed, died a very tragic death, very slow death. And like I said, I think that the stabbing, now it could be lower to where her shirt is covering it up. And a lot of people have raised questions like, did she even get stabbed? It didn't even look like she got stabbed, but there's blood everywhere. Okay. And the blood pooled right next to her bottom here on the left side. So I'm thinking that she got stabbed on the left side. And when you watch the video, you see his arm wrap around her whole entire body. And I think he stabbed her on the other side. People, I think, assumed that he stabbed her on this side of her face, the right side. And she's dying here. Okay, so she's already dying at this point because he already stabbed her. You can see the blood show up on her knee there, the splotch of blood. This guy walked away. After the guy walks away, the red hoodie, he goes, "I got that white girl." That guy walked away. That guy did nothing in the back with the blue shirt and the hat. That guy in the back did nothing. That guy did nothing. At first, I thought this guy in the gray shirt had walked up and was going to go chase this guy. This woman did nothing. In fact, she has her phone right there in her hand. This is the woman who goes back to pretty much scrolling on whatever the hell she was looking at before the stabbing. So, yeah, these people need to be charged or questioned as accomplices or as something. I think they quite literally, did they know this guy? I want to know, she suffered a stab to the neck and she slowly loses her consciousness and then she collapsed into a pool of blood. She did this terrified, alone. Nobody came to help her. I'm sure in the back of her head, she was thinking, I was going to die. And, I don't know about you, but I would have gone and comforted her. Like, there's probably nothing at this point that these people could do for her in that moment. She died within, minutes, it looks like. And she lost consciousness. Now, could they have addressed her wound? I don't know. But to die alone on the floor, I would have grabbed her. Could you imagine, just sitting there and not, comforting her in her last moments? This is another human being, but I truly believe that these passengers didn't see her as a human being. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they, just were scared and stunned and in shock, and they didn't do anything because of that shock, and the shock immobilized them. Maybe they are afraid to go after the bad guy because of what happened to Daniel Penny. We saw what happened when you go after bad guys. They go after you if you go after the bad guy. And they'll say, oh, that's vigilante justice, and you can't do that. You can't do self-defense. So, I would have just gone over there. She's crying. You don't know how many times in public where I've just seen people like having a breakdown or crying, not stabbed, but just crying. And you go over there and you comfort them. Why? Because you're a human being, and this is a fellow human being who is going through something. She's probably audibly crying at this point, I'd imagine. She's like sitting there like this. She's terrified. This woman knows exactly what's going on. How could she not? There's blood everywhere. Even if not, she has to see her like fear in her face and the tears in her eyes. And she didn't do anything to go comfort her. Like jump over into the seat next to her and hold her while she dies. Nobody deserves to die alone like that unless you are the guy who stabs people for no reason. Innocent people don't deserve to die alone like that. He should have just went over to put a hand on her, and comfort her a little bit. I don't know. It's really sad, but maybe they were scared because, hey, if I do something, is this guy going to hurt me? Or if I do something, am I going to go to jail for doing something and defending this rail cart or this rail train? But they are black, so they wouldn't have received the same treatment as Daniel Penny. Exactly. To be honest with you, the way I view this, those people didn't like her. Like, I really do think that they didn't like her. That would be the only explanation. And how do you not like somebody? By all appearances, they don't know her. Okay, how do you not like somebody that instantaneously? It's because the color of her skin was the wrong color. That's the way it looks to me. These people should be questioned. Why didn't you go? What was going on? They shouldn't be questioned as witnesses, but rather suspects. Did they know this guy? I think that's what we need to start asking. Did they know what he was going to do? Did they see him get on the train with a weapon and not say anything? I think that they need to be grilled as suspects because what they did there was criminal, in my opinion. It looks criminal. They like let him do it, and they didn't do anything to help her. Insane. Nobody whipped out their phone, dialed 911. It didn't look like anybody was dialing 911. Nothing. Okay. The train was taken over by the sweeping and systemic racism of his supporter and benefactor, the judge in the Dems. So this is, if you want to talk about systemic racism, this is it. Most likely what happened. She didn't see race. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't have sat down next to this guy, right? And she wasn't even really paying attention. She plugs the AirPod in her ear and she starts scrolling on her phone. She probably didn't even notice anybody was on the train, to be honest with you. And people get caught up in their own world and everything. But these people, after it all happened, and after the guy stood up and the blood was everywhere, there's the smell, there's everything. This girl's crying. Even then, they ignored her. So I think the moment she sat down, these people got one glimpse of her and said, we don't like her. And they like systemically, just in their head, ignore her completely. Okay. And maliciously ignored her. There's a difference between being caught up in your own world, like I think Irina was caught up, with the phone, the AirPod, tough day at work. There's a big difference between that and what these people did after she was brought to their attention. They purposefully turned and looked the other way. So yeah, that is systemic racism. Supporters of his, like it or not, they probably, in the back of their head were like, well, it's a white girl overreacting, or it's a white girl, and this is the environment that has been fostered here in America, the division that has been sown with these activist judges and with the soft on crime Democrat policies. This is the sentiment in America. Oh, that white girl, it's sad. All right, I want to shift gears. We will be back. I do want to talk a little bit about something that the mainstream is not going to touch, mainstream Illinois news. I'll talk about it because this is a bit of a doozy. This is the latest taxpayer scam, public transit funding. Now you've got Republicans out there saying, Illinois doesn't fund the transit system comparatively to compared to other states. We don't fund it nearly enough. Okay, so I called this. I said that Republicans are probably going to come up with some sort of, watered down plan to fund CTA, the Chicago Transit System. Of course, I was right. But we're going to break it all down here next. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we don't tiptoe. No. We stomp with the facts. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're talking about immigration, not the fairy tale version, but the real story. So buckle up. Let's rewind. Yes, America is a nation of immigrants, sure. But guess what else? We're a nation of laws. Okay, so from the get-go, we welcomed immigrants, folks who played by the rules, brought their skills, worked hard, and wanted to become an American and participate in our culture here, not just use America. So for over 200 years, we had rules, a process. You applied, you waited, and you earned your place. That's not xenophobia, that's order, by the way. And then enter in the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. That was a big turning point. It ditched the merit-based entry and it opened the floodgates for chain migration. This is where you, your grandkids, and your grandkids' dog and cousin can come over just because you're here. Okay, from there, it was a race to be the most compassionate. Okay, who could be the most compassionate? And the Democrats raced to create legislation and tried to virtue signal that they were the most compassionate, aka compassionate means reckless. Okay, so fast forward to 2021 under the Biden administration, it was a full-on border circus, over 8 million illegal border crossings, 2.4 million in just 2023 alone under Joe Biden's watch. Entire cities were being overwhelmed. Remember Springfield, Ohio. And instead of fixing it, the left is just handing out hotel rooms, driver's licenses here in the state of Illinois, health insurance, coverage, and voting rights. There was an actual immigrant. I forget where he was from. I think he was a Venezuelan immigrant or something. He got to vote in the Chinese. He was a Chinese national and he got to vote in our elections. And it's just like we're throwing this out like candy at a parade for all of these illegal immigrants. And who's paying for all of this? You are. Taxpayers are footing the bill. The housing, the healthcare costs, and American vets, meanwhile, are sleeping under bridges, and middle-class families can't afford eggs. Okay, so let's not forget about the security crisis either, okay, because that's a big part of this as well. Terror watch lists, encounters were at record highs. Fentanyl was pouring over the border, flooding the border. And the cartels were alive and well under the Biden administration. They were thriving under Joe Biden's open door policy. But sure, let's talk about humanitarian values. Kids are being trafficked over the border by smugglers. And, this is the most humanitarian thing to do. Give me a break. The future, it's on the line because either we enforce our laws or we lose the meaning of citizenship altogether. And that's what the left's ultimate goal is to hell with sovereignty, to hell with citizenship. Immigration can be good if it's legal and it's controlled and it's fair immigration. But here comes the other turning point. So in 1965, we had a turning point, and that's where everybody was just starting to race to be the most compassionate, aka everybody was just being reckless. But Trump 2025, this is another turning point. So he is, not just talking about a wall, but he is talking about a hammer. He's come down with his border czar, Tom Homan. Under the Trump administration's new immigration plan, he promised to deliver the largest, and he has, deportation operation in U.S. history. And we're talking about detention centers, fast track removals. That guy who threatened Donald Trump to assassinate him, he was an illegal immigrant, came into the country 9 times illegally, broke into the country 9 times between 1998 and I think it was 2005. Boy. So the left is going to cry racism. We know this, but Trump's plan is really what about this? Sovereignty. Okay, not skin color. It's about sovereignty and having a nation with borders. Really what the left wants is to do away with sovereignty. Donald Trump reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. He ended Biden's abusive asylum loopholes. And you want to come here? Great, do it legally. And you got to be, even legal immigrants have got to want to be American. Okay, they've got to want to conform to the culture. And we can't take anymore. Okay. We just can't. The blue state mayors are even screaming, we can't take anymore because it's a strain on our resources. And we really have to be selective now with our immigration. This has been Conservative Cat Clips, reminding you that borders are not racist. They're responsible. Laws don't make you cruel. They make you civilized. Let's fix immigration. Let's do it the American way, the legal way, orderly and fair. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you being here. Good morning. Shalom, shalom. I bet she and they rode the train every single day. Yeah. Like I said, I think that there was some systemic racism going on. You want to talk about systemic racism? It's this... when this white woman sits down, automatically all of these black people surrounding her said, we want nothing to do with her. That's what I really think happened. And they were just all disinterested. And even after she was brought to their attention, her crying, her being stabbed, there being blood everywhere. How do you not smell it? Right? Blood has a very distinctive smell. I mean, there was a lot there. Pulled up next to her left side there. So he wrapped his arm around her and I think stabbed her on the left side. Everybody was looking for the wound on the right side. I think it was on the left side. By the video, it looks like, but there were just disinterested humans all the way around. They didn't care. They didn't stop. They didn't try to save her life. They didn't try to call anybody. And hell, I mean, you go over and you look at this girl, and she's crying. I would have just gone over just for the simple fact that she looked distressed. She had her knees up to her chest and she was crying like this. If I saw somebody out in public like that, I would just go over see if they were okay. Right. And yeah, if the races were reversed, the media would be blasting this 24/7. There'd be riots in the street. But because she's white, silence. No hashtags, no marches, no nothing. No marches. This is just cowardice. These people on the rail cart. And it's the reality of a country that decides who matters and who doesn't based on race and politics. That's really what is going on here. This is the result of really years of creating a country who decides who matters based on their color of their skin. Irina didn't die from a knife. She died from a society that looked right at her and decided within seconds that she wasn't worth saving, or decided within seconds that she wasn't even worth looking at, or their attention wasn't even worth being drawn to her in any kind of way. So that's what happened there, I think. I think that it is systemic racism. Maybe not overt, like they didn't look at her and then like scream at her, "You stupid white girl." The bystanders, of course, they didn't say that, but subliminally in their mind, they didn't do anything because the moment she sat down, they were like, "Oh, that's a white woman. Let's not look at her." You know. Today, I do want to talk about a different story. We are going to scratch through the political litter box of Illinois and bring you the truth that the mainstream media isn't touching. Today's story is kind of a doozy. We are diving deep into the later taxpayer scam. This is the public transit funding, Chicago Transit Authority. Or should I say the public transit plundering. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he wants you to believe that draining your wallets for $1 billion boondoggle is somehow the path to a world-class transit system. No. The reason why they are in a shortfall, I think it's like $700 million to the tune of $700 million they're in the hole. The CTA, the reason why is because it is a failure. The system is a complete failure. They need to prioritize their spending. They're misspending, overspending. Folks, let me translate. If it's the path to Chicago politicians getting rich, okay, bailing them out, the Chicago Transit Authority bailing them out, that is a path to keeping the Chicago politicians rich and getting them richer and padding the union pensions. And the taxpayers, once again, are holding the bag. So grab a cup of coffee, buckle in, because today we are shredding through this transit fiscal cliff. Okay, this transit fiscal cliff. And we're going to show why America, especially Illinois, needs to claw its way out of the dependence on failed public transit. Okay, so we need to not rely on public transit. It's not safe, as we just talked about in the previous story. First of all, a lot of people don't even ride anymore because it's so unsafe. Let's start here, though. I want to start with the basics. The Chicago Transit Authority, CTA, claims that they're staring at a $770 million fiscal cliff. Okay, so that's bureaucratic speak for we spent too much money, we wasted billions of dollars, and now we're broke. Okay. State Senator Don DeWitt says Illinois puts in less money. So I kind of called this. I figured that Republicans were going to do this. They were going to try to come up, like the Republicans in the State House, they're going to try to come up with a watered down version of a tax, or they're going to try to come up with a reason why to fund the transit system. Because let's face it, the unions pad their campaign coffers as well. They want the unions to be happy as well, Republicans and Democrats alike in Illinois. They want them to be happy. And he says that Illinois puts less money, Senator Don DeWitt, less money into the transit system compared to other states. Good. If that's true, good. I find a hard time believing it, but yeah, okay. Good thing, because mass transit is a black hole. It is outdated. People shouldn't be riding it. There, I said it. I am anti-public transit. I think it's stupid. It's almost like as stupid as public libraries. Okay, so Chicago is bleeding people. Illinois has lost nearly 500,000 of its residents in the last decade. Businesses are fleeing. Crime is up. Families are getting hammered by inflation and property taxes. Need a sip of coffee there. And what's Springfield's solution, okay, to all of Illinois' problems? Not safer streets, not better schools, not lower taxes. Nope, their answer is to shovel more of your money into trains and buses and into trains and buses that fewer and fewer people are riding nowadays. Okay, let's not forget the ridership of the CTA has never really covered since the pandemic. Okay, remote work has exploded. People are working remotely. Ride sharing, Uber, people started supplementing their income because of the loss of job, either because they didn't take the vax or because their place of business was shut down because they were deemed unessential. So they started picking up ride sharing, and ride sharing exploded during the pandemic. And a lot of people migrated to suburbia. Okay, so they got out of the city, and that means all of that contributes to ridership going down. And I don't think ridership is ever going to be returned to its glory days because we've shifted culturally. And bureaucrats don't care about the ridership. They demand $770 million from you because they think government exist to prop up a failing system instead of facing reality. And the reality is that the system kind of sucks and that nobody really rides it, and we probably shouldn't even be paying for it at all. Okay, so here comes JB Pritzker waddling up to the podium. He's smirking and he's saying, we got to look at potential revenue sources to fix this fiscal cliff. Okay, translation, he's eyeing your wallet. That's Pritzker. He's like, oh, yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to grab up all of your money. So he's eyeing up your wallet. And State Senator Don DeWitt, he floated this idea of using interest from Illinois' rainy day fund. And that is around $600 million. So Republicans, like I said, I guessed that they were going to try to come up with something because they don't want to do the delivery tax, right? Republicans, that was a $1.50 or $1.50 delivery tax that they were thinking about implementing, and they still might on pizzas or whatever you deliver to your house to try to bail out the CTA. And DeWitt, like, this sounds clever at first. Okay, let's use the interest from the rainy day fund. Okay, but let me warn you about something. It sounds clever, sure, and you're not implementing a new tax, but we really need that interest, okay? Because, and let me warn you, once the government gets a taste of raiding the rainy day fund or the interest of the rainy day fund, it becomes a monsoon every season, okay? Monsoon season every year. They are going to do that every single year for whatever the hell they want. Okay. And that money is supposed to be a cushion for Illinois from emergencies. Okay. It is not supposed to fund Chicago's mismanaged trains or whatever the hell they dream up of next year to use that money for. Okay. So Pritzker, I guess he sneered at Dwight and he said, oh, he's too late to the table, to make any ideas or to suggest anything. And, Pritzker acts like he acts and the Democrats act like there's this big table where everybody comes around and they share their ideas and there's this big brainstorming session. That is not how it works. The table is more like a casino craps table, and the Chicago machine is there rolling the dice with your money, and the house always wins. Okay. So it is not a table where Republicans are welcome. And I'm just so tired of Republicans trying to play around with these people. What needs to happen is you just need to come out full guns blazing and say, no, public transit is unsafe. The ridership isn't there to justify funding it. We should be cutting our funding to the public transit system because there's things like ride sharing that have exploded, remote work that have exploded. People are leaving the state of Chicago or the city of Chicago, and they're going to suburbia where public transit isn't used as often. So we need to be cutting it and not funding it at all. That is the position Republicans should be taking. But they always try to play cutesy time with the Democrats in the State House. And I don't know why. I think it's because, they're beholden to the unions probably just as much as the Democrats are. If you take a look at their campaign coffers, likely you'll see that Republicans are taking the same money from these unions just as much as the Democrats are. Maybe that's part of it. Another part of it is maybe, this naive approach that, hey, if I play around or play cutesy time or give them an inch, maybe they will, work with me on different legislation. Maybe they'll work with me on this, or they'll cut property taxes for my district or do something about property tax reform. And it's just naive because they won't ever listen to you. You're just going to bend the knee and you're going to, appear weak. And yeah, I don't get Republicans. I really don't. Illinois Republicans are all trash, most of them. Anyway, so instead of fixing the structural problems, corruption, bloated payrolls, these contracts, these cushy contracts that they award these unions, Springfield and Chicago are demanding more revenue sources, i.e., taxes, more taxes, borrowing money, more debt on your children. Okay, you know what they mean by more revenue sources. And I kind of want to talk about this jaw dropper. Okay, this dropped my jaw when I looked into this. The CTA red line extension. So, folks, this should make everybody this morning spit out their coffee. Okay, when I tell you about this. The feds approved $5.75 billion to extend the red line 5 miles. That's it. So let me calculate that out. That is about $1 billion per mile. Okay. $1 billion with a B dollars per mile for a single mile of track. 1 billion for a single mile of track. That isn't just a boondoggle. That is highway robbery in broad daylight. Okay. You could literally build gold-plated streets for less money. You could probably buy every rider of the CTA a brand new Toyota Corolla and still come out cheaper. Okay. And have it come out cheaper than that. $5.75 billion to extend this red line track. So, of course, DeWitt points out in the Center Square article that federal taxpayers are footing the bill as well. This means that if you live in Texas, Florida, Iowa, congratulations, you are funding Chicago South Side rail extension that you'll probably never use. Okay, Texas, Iowa, Florida, this was federal dollars. Okay, so this was $5.75 billion to build an extension for the South Side Chicago rail extension. So this isn't about mobility. This is about contractors, unions, developers, consultants. Everyone gets a slice of that $5.75 billion pie. Okay. And the train, when the train finally rolls down that shiny new track, the 5 miles of track, if it ever gets finished, it's not even finished yet, you'll be lucky to get the seats, half the seats filled. Okay. So I'm telling you right now, not worth it because people aren't riding public transit so much. $5.75 billion for 5 miles of track at a federal level. So Texans are paying for that. Floridians are paying for that. And it's not even finished. Most likely it'll never get finished. And $5.75 billion is really going towards unions and developers, consultants, and contractors. Like that is what that money is going towards. And they're paying them to do this job that'll probably never get done. And even if it does get done, likely you're not even going to fill the seats of the train car, and it's not going to be worth it. It won't be worth it at all. So CTA's new acting president, Nora Learson, inherited this mess after Dorville Carter bailed out to take early retirement. Okay, so let's be honest, in Chicago, early retirement usually means early pension jackpot. DeWitt nailed it when he called it a pipe dream to early retirement. Yeah. So that is probably a lot of CTA's problem is the pensions. They're giving people all kinds of pensions, and they're nice and cushy pensions. That's why that's why they're in the $707 million fiscal cliff. It's because they're mismanaging the money and they're paying people these premium pension plans, or giving these people these premium pension plans. So now I want to pause here and talk about this from a Christian worldview. Government is not God. Let me repeat that for the people in the back. Government is not God. It cannot solve every problem. The Bible warns against idolatry, putting false gods before God or before the Lord. And really, here in Illinois, they've turned public transit into an idol, much like they've turned SNAP, we talked about that earlier, into an idol. They worship trains and buses as if salvation will arrive on the next stop. Trains and buses, again, this is government dependency. They want transit dependencies. Families don't thrive when government forces them into transit dependency. Families thrive when they have freedom to move, drive, and live where they choose to have their own land, to raise their children in these safe neighborhoods. That is where families thrive. They don't want them to thrive. They want you transit dependent. They want you food dependent because they'll trot out every single year. Oh, if you don't vote for us, then you won't have the public transit system. And it's just enough people who use it who will come out and vote, and that's their voter base. There's just enough people who use it to where it secures their election. And really, I wouldn't say it's even the people who use it who are securing the election for them. It's the people who abuse it who secure the election for the Democrats. It's the people, the unions. Okay, that's the only reason why they want this to keep going and want you to be transit dependent because they want you to be dependent on the union, the services they provide. And I use that term loosely because it's really a mess, the transit system. I mean, it's not safe. They don't arrive on time. The buses, the trains, nothing arrives on time. But if the unions are dependent on, then the unions are happy, and then they'll continue to contribute to the Democrat coffers. You see how this is making sense? Since mass transit, in the way that Chicago builds it, is the opposite of liberty. It's centralized, union-controlled, and permanently subsidized. It drains money from schools, from roads, from public safety, all to prop up empty train cars. Okay, so let's not forget crime on the CTA is through the roof, assaults, robbery, drug use. Do you think Christian families want to put their kids on those trains? Absolutely not. So you got to love how they spin this stuff. Pritzker recently, he came out and he said that he wants a world-class transit system. And some backwards logic, he's saying that if we fund the $770 million fiscal hole, that we're going to have a world-class transit system. Yeah, okay. I think the graffiti-covered red line cars that smell like weed with a conductor that's asleep rolling through neighborhoods with boarded up windows, I don't think that's world-class. And I don't think that, plugging this hole is going to make it world-class. Okay, it's going to take a lot of work. Maybe Illinois should start selling tickets to taxpayers to watch where their money goes. Step right up, folks. See the amazing $1 billion mile. Because honestly, I wouldn't mind paying for that. Sell tickets to taxpayers just to watch where their money goes. Only in Chicago, where corruption runs faster than any train. Step right up. Watch where your taxpayer dollars are going. We're going to build one mile of track on this red line. It's for the South Side Chicago Red Line that only a few people use. And we're going to use $5 billion to build 5 miles. So let's get serious here. What's the answer? The answer is stop subsidizing it completely. Really, it should be bought out. The public transit system, give it to a private company, private sector. Let the private sector handle transit. Really, Uber, Lyft, they've got it down. Ride sharing. I would just give this to a private company. Let the private sector figure it out. If transit line can't sustain itself for riders, with riders and fares, and they can't sustain itself without the subsidies, it shouldn't exist. For period. Like, the public transit system shouldn't exist. Second, focus on roads. Illinois has some of the worst infrastructure in the nation. Families and businesses depend on highways, local roads more than they do the urban rails. So let's focus on the roads. Maybe take that interest money. And I'm not advocating for this because this is a slippery slope. But DeWitt brought it up where we take our rainy day fund interest, and we put it towards this whole $600 million of it, put it towards this $770 million hole. Terrible idea, in my opinion. I think it would be better used on hard infrastructure like your roads and bridges and highways. I think that would be better because more people use it. I'm not advocating for using that because, like I said, it should be a cushion. And once you use it for something, next year they'll use it for something else. Third, we have to empower the private sector. Rideshare, bus companies, private shuttles. Let them innovate. Let them thrive. They are the future of transportation. Okay. It's not this dated railroad, train, and buses, the public transit system. We've got technology, we've got flexibility, we've got rideshare. Just let them thrive, the private sector. Fourth, return monies to families. Okay. Every dollar wasted on transit is a dollar not spent on, our roads, our schools, our groceries, our mortgages, our churches. Okay, so every dollar wasted on this transit thing, those dollars could be right back in the pockets of Illinoisans, of Illinois families, and they could use it for things that actually matter to them. Public policy should strengthen households, not politician pet projects. Okay, so Illinois is at a crossroads, my friends. The state can either double down on this failed transit dream that they've got, or they can embrace liberty, efficiency, and family first policy. Governor J.B. Pritzker wants more taxes, more debt, and more empty trains. We say no. We say Illinois families deserve better. And we have to remember that government can't save you. Okay, politicians can't rescue you. Only God can. And he has given us wisdom, stewardship, and freedom to resist foolishness. And this is just complete and utter foolishness. So the next time you hear Pritzker talking about a world-class transit system, just know that he's not talking about you. He's talking about his donors, his unions, and his gravy train. Okay, it is a gravy train. They want to throw this money at the system so that they can pad their own coffers by securing contracts for these unions. Okay. The conservative cat here at this show, we are always going to claw through the lies and we are going to expose the truth. Folks, I've got to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back. I want to talk about a congresswoman. She called illegal aliens her constituents. These people, by the very definition of the word constituent, are not constituents. I'll get to that here on the other side. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. Okay. I address these sometimes. They're fun. Rapist Trump. Trump is a chomo, a child molester. He's a pedophile. Pritzker is not a pedophile like President Donald Trump. Oh, boy. Like I said, in the 1800s, if you were to say these things about somebody without any kind of conviction, there's no proof of that whatsoever. In the 1800s, you would be dead, man. Defamation is a real thing. And, you can go as far as to say, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like him because of X policy. I don't like that he doesn't release the Epstein files. You can say those kinds of things. But accusing somebody of pedophilia and outright calling them, not even accusing them of pedophilia. Like, there's even a difference between saying, I think Donald Trump is a pedophile. Coming out and saying that Donald Trump is a pedophile is just false. Never convicted of that, never convicted of child molestation, never convicted of rape. So, I mean, it's so annoying when I get these trolls on here and they say these things. If you were to say this back in the 1800s, man, you'd be gone. Okay. The assassination on this guy's character is insanity to me. This would have never flown back in the 1800s. You'd be challenged to a duel and your face would be blown off. That would be what would happen if you made those types of accusations back then. You can say you don't like him. You can say that you think he's a pedophile or that you disagree with the lack of information. And I've covered this several times. I think I've talked about it literally every day, how Donald Trump is not the guy to release the files. Okay. The intelligence communities, now he could direct the intelligence communities to go do it. So that would be Tulsi Gabbard to unseal these court documents. But even then, the intelligence communities, I don't even think that they can jump through the necessary hurdles in order to unseal these court documents because there's something called the executive branch and the judicial branch. There's powers within the judicial branch and then there's powers within the executive branch, and they can't step on each other. Okay. If President Donald Trump has even directed the intelligence communities to release those files, and I don't even know if he has. Perhaps he has, I don't know, unsealing those court documents. maybe he's been briefed on it, and the reason why it hasn't been made public or completely unsealed, perhaps it's an issue of national security where you've got prime ministers of other countries, banking class. And let's be real, you just don't like Donald Trump. It's not that you don't like or that you care about the victims, the Epstein victims. It's not that you want to know who the human traffickers are. You just don't like Donald Trump. I want to know who the human traffickers are. I do. I want to know who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked the humans to. I don't believe that it was just him. I think that the better approach, which is exactly what the deputy attorney general at the behest of Pam Bondi is doing, they're trying to work around the court sealed documents, and they're trying to get Ghislaine Maxwell to talk. Okay, so anyway, I like to address them sometimes, the trolls. Okay, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Ansari, let's get to her. She's a Democrat congresswoman, and she proudly declared that illegal aliens are, who by definition cannot vote legally, okay, are her constituents. That's what she said. She blatantly said that out loud. You know, tax-paying Americans who live in your district, you know, they're not your constituents. The ones who snuck across the border in the middle of the night, and they're the ones who are your constituents. And I think that she's admitted the quiet part out loud here, okay? So they'll call you a conspiracy theorist when you say that the Democrats' goal is to get the illegal immigrants to come in and vote. Okay. And no, there's not like an affidavit that all the Democrats have signed and got it signed, you know, in the presence of a notary and got it notarized. Okay. There's not that kind of documentation out there that is their end goal. But like, come on, I don't need an independent fact checker to tell me that is the goal here. They are trying to get the illegal immigrants into the country to either bloat the voter rolls to make stealing easier, stealing an election easier, or they're just going to outright use the illegal immigrants as a voter base. So Ansari, she kind of let this slip. This was a slip of the tongue, I guess, or really a slip of the truth, I like to say. And she fired back with what I can only describe as the Democrat Party's favorite new campaign slogan, "I don't give a shit." Okay. So she actually said that she's got quite the pouty mouth on her. It's kind of like Governor J.B. Pritzker talked about this yesterday, saying like, if you don't like Illinois, move. You know, this is kind of the Democrat Party way. They say, I don't really care. I don't really give a crap about you. If you don't like Illinois, move. You know, that same sentiment. Ladies and gentlemen, she said it, a sitting U.S. congresswoman, a so-called trailblazer, youngest female, you know, first Iranian American. You know, she said that the media, and by the way, the media fawns over this woman, gives her all kinds of gold stars for identity politics. She's the first female, you know, or youngest female and first Iranian American. Okay. They give her all kinds of gold stars. She like reduced her defense of law breaking, because really that's what it is. Calling an illegal immigrant is on the verge of law breaking because they're not allowed to vote. So if you're calling illegal immigrants constituents, what is going on in your district? Because they shouldn't be constituents. So she reduced her defense of law breaking to profanity on camera. Very classy of her. And get this, here's the kicker. She even admitted that she had to Google what the word constituent meant. So she didn't even know what the word constituent meant, I guess. I kid you not. She ran to the almighty Google and read the definition. Surprise, surprise, the definition of constituent is a voting member of the community who has the power to appoint or elect. So that's not me saying it. That's not Fox News. It's not some conservative blog or right-wing blog. That is Google saying what a constituent is. And she calls illegal immigrants her constituents. So what does she know that we don't? Let's take a listen here to how she was asked about this, why she called illegal immigrants her constituents. And she was pretty much having to answer for it. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Thank you, Congresswoman. You were referring to those in petition as your constituents. Do you view even those with absolutely no form of legal status at all as your constituents as well?
So
I didn't realize this was such a controversy until the right-wing media started attacking me for using the word. So I Googled the word constituent. The definition of constituent is somebody who is part of a community. Doesn't matter what their legal status is. If somebody is an asylum seeker, if somebody has a green card, if somebody is a US citizen, if somebody lives in the community, I represent them. Constituent does not mean voter. I don't care if none of these individuals can vote for me. I don't give a shit. I care about making sure that the United States government, with our taxpayer dollars, is treating human beings with dignity and respect. So yes.
Thank you.
There you have it. What? Okay, so by our own research, and it does mean voter, by the way, it's a voting member of the community. That is what a constituent is, somebody with the power to appoint or elect. So she can't even Google correctly, right, folks? She said by definition, they're not voters. Yes, they are. They're trying to change the word of constituent. Okay, you see what they're doing? So by her own research, the people she's championing, the same people that she wants to shower your tax dollars with, the same people the Democrats want to prioritize over veterans, over working moms, struggling families, they aren't even constituents, okay? If you had done your research correctly, you'd find out that they aren't constituents by definition. Legally, they're not constituents. By definition, they're not constituents. And by any honest measure of the word. But the Democrats don't obviously care about definitions anymore. And you see what they're going to try to start to do here. They are going to try to change the definition of constituent. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about the meaning of words. They care about power. They care about redefining the word constituent to mean anyone who sets foot in their district, whether they do it legally or illegally. That just helps them build, whoever helps them build their permanent voter base. If the person builds their permanent voter base, definitions go out the window, and they will tell you to shut up and to swallow it. And if you ask questions, well, according to Ansari here, she doesn't give a shit. Right? She doesn't care about what you say, what the definition of a constituent is. You see, folks, this is what happens when we allow radical leftists to run the show. They insult the very people they're supposed to represent, actual American citizens, and then they bend over backwards for illegal aliens. And the media applauds them because, hey, this woman, she's shattering the glass ceiling, right? She's a young female, and she's the first Iranian American to hold office. And I don't know about you, but I don't care how many glass ceilings this woman breaks. If you're stabbing the Constitution in the back, I'm never going to vote for you, and you shouldn't either. And if you can't even abide by the basic definitions and by language, I mean, here's the real controversy. It's not whether Donald Trump's immigration reforms are too common sense for the elites to stomach. It's that the Democrat Party, they have openly chosen illegal immigrants over you. The American taxpayer, they have chosen them over you. And they are bold enough to say it out loud, and they see them as constituents despite them not having any kind of voting power legally. And the cherry on top of all of that they openly admit that they choose illegal immigrants over you, the cherry on top of all of that is that they don't give a hoot. They don't care. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to visit patriottpumpenergy.com. Get your bottle of premium pre-workout using promo code ConservativeCat for $10 off at checkout. I appreciate you being here. Bye-bye. Love you so much.